Oh, hey y'all, it's 4:25 p.m. Unplug. 4:25 p.m. Today's the 4th of April 2018. I got a comment from Jesus First Always asking my thoughts basically, or suggesting a topic of what should communities look like after SHTF. So the first thoughts that come to mind for me on that is I believe Nutn Fancy, NUTNFANCY, has a video that came out several years ago called Resurgence of Community, which this video is going to be titled something similar to that, where he addresses this topic fairly well. Another thing I would suggest is that Pastor Joe Fox at Viking Preparedness discusses these types of things pretty much on the regular. But several months ago, he did a video called What is Things That Women Need to Consider After SHTF, or something like that. And he talks about that quite a bit, the resurgence of community as well. So I want to preface my talk on the subject with the fact that I have seen both of those videos. I have my own thoughts on the subject, but I have seen both of those videos. So I think the first thing to understand is that if you don't have a community now, you're not going to magically get one after the end of the world as we know it, after SHTF. Now you may find yourself with a group of people, but I'm not sure that that is a community. A community requires cohesion, right? You guys have to be, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts is the community aspect. So, a group of people, a conglomeration of people, does not a community make. So that's the first thing I would kind of draw a line in the sand there and say, let's be intentional about what we're talking about here. Community is going to require individuals working together as a team. So anybody who's been here for a while knows the next thing I'm going to say is you should have a team now. Okay, we're going to foot stomp that. You should have a team now, because you're not going to magically get one when the world explodes. Okay, when society goes to hell in a handbasket, that's going to be a bad time to start figuring out who can I trust? Who do I have similar moral and ethical and spiritual values with? Those are questions probably best answered now, not then. So as always, I strongly encourage you to build your community now, okay? And that can look like a lot of different things for a lot of different people. If you are out in the sticks, your community is, going to be maybe less tightly knit than in suburbia, maybe a little bit more independent than in suburbia, but I would say stronger than in suburbia, because people in the sticks tend to be a little bit more self-sufficient than in the suburbs, and certainly than in the city. We've talked about this before. The city is a study in specialized labor, whereas the country is a study in generalized labor, more or less. Just allow me that. So you need a community first if you're going to have a resurgence of community. Now, that community is probably going to be your neighbors and anybody else who comes to your house. I'm coming to your house when the world ends. So I'd think long and hard about who's coming to your house when the world ends, because if you can't stand them now, probably not best to have them around in probably the most stressful situation of your life. So things to consider. But let's say you're all squared away on that. Okay. I would say a community that's making A grades in all departments is barely going to notice that the world has ended. So there's not going to be a need for resurgence of community because there will be continuity of community. So the more of your resources you can generate on property as a community, the less of an impact you're going to feel if and when this whole place goes to hell in a handbasket. The more dependent you are on the system, the more painful it's going to be for you and your team, your community, when this society all goes away, because you're going to have to do without a lot of things. Am I saying that to where it makes sense to you guys? Okay, and then as far as the city goes, just leave. Just get out. You have people stacked on top of people, literally, and there are no resources. There are no resources. Extremely high population density with zero resources. It's a recipe for disaster. In a system failure, it's a recipe for disaster. Right? You get into the suburbs where you have a few more resources and a slightly lower population density. It's doable, although I would say it's less than ideal. And then finally, in rural areas where people can generate more of their own inputs and be as independent from the system as they have ambition to be, and there's a very low population density, yeah, you're going to be okay, I think. You'll be much better off than in the city or than in the suburbs. But what should a community focus on? Number one, you need to be able to produce calories. Not only should people, as part of your MAG, as part of your team, your community, have calories stored up already, and I would suggest at a bare minimum a year's worth of food for everybody in the home, plus everybody who's coming to the home. A bare minimum of a year's worth of food. Plus, I think that you might want to have extra in case extra people show up that are valuable to your group. So you need food put up, but you also need a way to generate calories. And by that, I mean livestock and garden, crops, whatever, which we've touched on this briefly as well in other videos. In the suburbs is doable. It's just going to require a little bit more ingenuity and I think a little bit more effort to get the appropriate yield to actually feed you and your team off of your suburban quarter-acre lot or whatever it is that you have. And I know, some areas of suburbia have a 1-acre lot. That's cool. A buddy of mine in the MAG has a 1-acre lot, has a pretty robust garden, and his approach is that if and when things happen, he can till up his entire backyard and end up with a 3/4-acre garden, which is a lot of food. It's a good approach for the circumstances that he finds himself in. That being said, I'm doing some preparatory work up in Oklahoma that if he needs to use my location as a bug out location, he can. Because sooner or later, that population density is going to get you. Okay? Okay. That is a cool barn. Hold on. Y'all see that? That's a cool barn. All right. So you need calories on hand stored. You need a way to make calories. And then I would say with that, work on your homestead kitchen skills. The ability to smoke, the ability to process game, the ability to can, to dehydrate, seed saving, all of those things that go on a homestead. Find somebody or some buddies in the group and make that their business. Judy, you're awesome at canning. Oh, why thank you, sweetie. Good news, you're in charge of canning. Sorry, Judy. Whatever. Make sure that people manage their expectations. Assign responsibilities to people, then manage their expectations and make sure you're clear on what your expectations are. Okay? So have that homestead kitchen squared away. So that's calories. Next thing from there, water. I hope that's pretty obvious to you guys. If you're not storing water now, you should be. If you don't have a way to collect water, you should work that out, whether it's rain catchment or storage gallons or the bobs for your tub that you fill up the water bob and get 100 gallons of water in your tub. Whatever. Just get a way to store water and then a way to replenish water. You know, our plan in the suburbs was a small trailer hooked to a bicycle with 5-gallon buckets and lids that we could pedal to the one place that we know of that had water, aside from water catchment off of our roofs. And we have 6 55-gallon drums, food-grade drums, filled with water, as well as water bottles and water, the big 5 gallons and all that. But our replenishment, if not rain catchment, was a 5-gallon bucket. So, you know, a 5-gallon bucket on wheels, but it's a 5-gallon bucket. It's not sophisticated, but it's better than not having water. So I'd get your water squared away, not just collection, but treatment. You know, storage, collection, and treatment. Have supplies on hand to purify water. Hey, I used to work on that farm, and it's fallen apart since the last 4 or 5 years ago I was there. Anyway, yeah, we're driving the back roads out in North Texas, away from the population densities. It's pretty cool. And I'm, believe it or not, looking for pirate ships. So, yes, pirate ships. Somebody ask in the comments, and maybe I'll let you know. Anywho, catchment, storage, collection on your water. Then there's a few high points that I really think you need to hit. Security is one of them. Okay, that should be obvious. Security is one of them. You need to establish some vague facsimile of rule of law, even if it's just within your own boundaries. Okay? So, security, you should have, you know, it depends on how many of you there are. Okay? But I would at least want to have a guard posted day and night. Just day and night, have somebody posted as a guard. And we, you know, maybe we'll do a breakout video on SHTF security. That's probably a good idea. So I'll make a note of that. Comms is questionable to me, honestly. I think there's a large value in being able to talk to each other in your team on a team level. And there is value in being able to talk outside of your team to other people. But what a lot of civilians don't realize is that you should treat every single radio transmission as if everybody else can hear it. And a lot of people are of a mindset that they will just hop on the radio and, hey, yeah, by the way, we're over here at the blah, 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 with the blah, 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 and then next thing you know, oh, man, there's a whole bunch of bad guys showed up. What happened? They overheard your radio transmission, bro. Oh, well, these are 286-bit encrypted. It doesn't matter. Treat every single radio transmission as if somebody's listening. Okay, that's why people have call signs. That's why that, you know, rather than using coordinates, you would say, I'm at checkpoint Alpha, and checkpoint Alpha, to those that are in the know that, yeah, that's 86 North, blah, 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 blah. You know, like, you get it. You figured that stuff out beforehand, rather than saying, yeah, I'm over here by the big pecan tree, and we just found a whole bunch of useful stuff, and there's all kinds of food and water over here, and next thing you know, people are descending on your position. That's bad. So, and by the way, I think we're now lost looking for these pirate ships. So, there is value to comms. I think it's more valuable inter-team. person to person within your team. Although intel from the outside world, if you can garner it, is valuable. So, you got that going. I have a ton of books for, like, literally probably a ton of books for, as a knowledge library, for reference, but also for entertainment and for teaching for children, to keep children busy. Because I have children, other members of our mag have children, and you're going to have to do something with the kids. So somebody on the team, that should be their responsibility to take care of the children. You know, schoolmaster, nanny, whatever, right? And really, a lot of those things kind of sort themselves out in the first day or two. And have people rotate positions, you know. Somebody's going to need to plant the fields, but they're going to get tired of planting the fields, so maybe on Tuesdays they watch the kids. And that gives whoever watches the kids a day off from watching the kids, and they find real joy in going out and weeding the bean plants or whatever, you know. So, food and water are obvious. Shelter, yeah, shelter. You should have room for people at your place. Whoever's coming to your place, have room for them. Or tell them to bring shelter. Now, depending on where you are, if you're in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, a tent is not going to cut it in February. You're going to die. So, shelter is relative. So those are things to consider. One of the things that Pastor Joe does on his property is every structure he builds, they're out in the Ozarks on a piece of land, and every structure he builds in such a way that if it had to house people, it could. It could be used as a temporary or semi-permanent dwelling for a family, whatever it is. You know, whether it's a woodshed or, you know, building a barn and putting lofts in the barn that people can sleep on or whatever. So you're going to need that shelter. I would also probably say tools. A collection of hand tools, saws, hammers, whatever. Chainsaws are great. If you're out in the country, yeah, it'll give away your position, but people probably won't care. If you're in the suburbs, yeah, it'll give away your position, and people probably will care. You know, hand tools, sockets, wrenches, screwdrivers, saws, hammers, long handled tools like shovels and rakes and, you know, post hole diggers and hoes and whatever, you know. I would definitely have a robust collection of seeds, getting back to the food thing, and not like one planting's worth. I would have 4 or 5 plantings worth of seeds, because crops fail. Things go bad. Like, Murphy will jack your stuff up. So you don't want like one of anything. 2, 3, 4, 5. I am literally at the point now in my life, don't tell my wife, shh, I'm going to start buying rifles. My next thing is I'm going to buy a half a dozen rifles, a half a dozen plate carriers, put together a half a dozen med kits. I'm going to get 6 dozen rifle mags, you know, load them all up, get a half a dozen radios, you know, a half a dozen knives, multi-tools, a half a dozen, I'm putting together a half a dozen loadouts, rucksacks, you know, capabilities kits, the whole 9. And, or at least this is a goal of mine. Get to that point where I have like a half a dozen capabilities kits that I can hand out to people as needed. And not just some guy who walks up from outside the camp and says, hey, I want to join your team, but maybe somebody who they had to get out, part of your team had to get out and they were unable to bring their stuff with them. Or maybe your son is 14 now, and by the time this happens, he's 18. And sorry, son, but I'm going to need you to kit up and hold this rifle. All right? Capabilities kits. So, as far as a resurgence of community, I think the best bet is to establish community now and be as self-sufficient as possible so you feel as little impact as possible when it all goes to hell. So, I got to go find these pirate ships. I hope this was helpful. I feel like I did a little bit of ranting, and I'm unsure of my informational density But y'all let me know. You'll let me know what else I need to talk about. So thank you, Jesus First Always, for the question. I hope this helps, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye. Found him. There's another one way back there. So yeah. Remember I said we're carpenters? Maybe you didn't know that. We didn't build these. Some prop company out of Arkansas built these. But we have repaired all the stuff that they built extremely poorly. Hello, puppy. Look, a puppy. We got a friend. Hi. Hello. Don't you jump on me. Stay down. So, anyway, I found the pirate ships. Scallywags. Now go resurge your community.